Welcome back. Well, today, December 22nd, 2023, we're going to catch up on a few news clips. The news clips we have in front of us are one's from Ohio, December 17th, so it's just a few days old. And it's this lady, Vanessa. She was raised in an incest relationship. Her mom and her dad were brother and sister. They both had separate fathers. We'll cover the whole article. And it's funny, when I was looking at this article, I actually thought this was the lady that was being interviewed. But actually, this here is the interview host right here. And over here is the lady, Vanessa, from Northeast Ohio. So incest within the Jehovah's Witness religion isn't something that I've seen that much of. Now, we're going to cover that. Now, the next article we're going to cover is Silenced, the Rado Vleugel story. Now, we're going to cover that one. That's from the UK. Okay, so let's get into this story. Vanessa, she's a former Jehovah's Witness. I'll put this a little closer so you guys can see it. Her parents were siblings. She called it a twisted relationship. They had 7 children together. I haven't heard the likes of this ever in the organization. I'd appreciate your comments. Maybe incest is something that's out there. You know, maybe it's not talked about, but maybe it's out there. Maybe you guys know of a situation. Maybe it's a bigger problem than we know about. But let's look at the story here. She says she began by explaining how her parents got legally married in 1974, and they didn't have to show a lot of ID or something back then, and they kind of lied on their marriage certificate. They swore under oath that they weren't cousins or anything like that. So they got married. And she said her mother was 19 at the time and her father was 28. It was around the time that her parents enrolled as Jehovah's Witnesses, which caused friction among the congregation due to the ancestral nature of the relationship. So we'll just think about that. Now, we don't have to think too much because in the Elders book, it talks about this. So I guess my question would be, why wouldn't they have dealt with it right there? Right there. They lied, so they became a Jehovah's Witness. Now, when you become a Jehovah's Witness, you're supposed to clean up your past lies and stuff like that. So if you're illegally married, how could they even get baptized? And then they knew about it. So if they lied all the way through the baptism, then got found out, then why wouldn't they be dealt with, reproved? Till they fixed it. Can't be married. You know, it's against the law. Not unless you're in a Hutterite colony or something like that. They seem to get away with a lot of stuff. Now, discussing, I might have to retract that comment, my good wife says. So I'll retract that. I think the Hutterites are great people and they run great colonies. Okay, moving forward. Incest. That's the only place I've kind of really heard about it. That's why I kind of said it. I lived next to one. But we're talking about Jehovah's Witnesses. Incest right in the congregation. They knew about it, didn't deal with it. Now, she goes on and says, discussing her relationship with her parents, she said, my mom had some anger problems. She was physically abusive, emotionally abusive, so she never really got close to her. You know, mums and daughters should be just like this, close. So Vanessa's dad moved in and out of the house due to rage and anger, but the couple continued to welcome children together in a quick succession. So they made lots of babies, is what she was saying. And you know, if they had rage problems and all these family problems, the elders are supposed to go in and shepherd them and help with that kind of stuff, you would think. But anyways, one of the couple's sons died, and that's what happens. That's why this incestual relationship, it's not supposed to happen. As in the Bible, it talks about it way back in Deuteronomy. Now, it says one of the couple's sons died, just 3 months old, pneumonia. Vanessa said the congregation advised her mom not to have any more kids at the risk of getting shunned. But the mom ignored the warnings. Why wouldn't they take it away at the beginning? But even here, why wouldn't they do something? No, they didn't. The congregation didn't do anything. Her parents welcomed their sixth child in 1989 when her mom was 40, but the boy suffered a series of health issues from birth. And there is a problem with him. Apparently, he did not have properly structured urinary system, and he had a dead kidney, she detailed. And he ended up living through everything, and he had 3 surgeries before he was 6 months old, and the dead kidney was removed, and they were able to fix everything. And 2 of her siblings were also born with cross eyes, which were successfully corrected, as she asserted. And other than none of us kids really had any serious issues, she says. So, and still her mom wanted more kids. So she says, my dad wasn't living there anymore, so she was just going out in the evenings, her mother, to his apartment for the sole purpose of having a 7th child. But after giving birth again, despite the warning, she was forced to move congregations to avoid being shunned from the religion. Like, the religion still didn't deal with this. After that many kids, she wanted to have a 7th child. So she then, at 42 years old, wanted to try for an 8th baby, but her brother said no. She was done. Vanessa concluded, so my mother was pregnant by her brother a total of 9 times, 7 live births and 2 miscarriages, and still got to be a Jehovah's Witness in good standing. It's a good point she's making. You know, how does this stuff make it through? And they even moved congregations. But Vanessa explained she wasn't that motherly. I honestly don't know why she wanted so many children. There came a point where I thought the whole thing just became a little fetish to her because she liked talking about her love for her brother. By the time I was about 4th grade, I knew how my dad performed in bed. I knew what kind of size he was. My mother liked talking about what he did with her brother, even to children. Wow, twisted. Delving deeper into what it was like being raised as a member of the religion, Vanessa said, there's no holidays. There's no Mother's Day, no Father's Day, no 4th of July. They're allowed to celebrate their anniversary and the memorial of Jesus' death. Those are the only things they're allowed to celebrate. And she continued, you have to go to the Kingdom Hall meetings 3 days a week, and then they want you to preach. And I think at least 10 hours a month you were supposed to go knock on doors. We weren't really allowed to have friends outside the religion, but I didn't really have friends in the religion. Now, folks, here's a picture of the podcast. I'm going to post this in the description, so if you want to watch the podcast, you're more than welcome. Okay. So it goes on to say in the article, she said people got shunned for smoking cigarettes and gambling, among other things, before revealing that she didn't get any education after the 7th grade. Can you believe that? After the 7th grade, they even held her out of school. She says, I was grieving my education. I loved school, and now I'm home 24/7. Basically, I'm just a home taking care of babies, and that's about it, she says. So she's like a homemaiden. She says, I was being forced only to have Jehovah's Witness friends, but at a point they don't want to be my friend. And I'm not working toward baptism. I'm a teenager who does not believe in any of it, so some of their parents don't want them to hang around me. So she's what they call bad association. So she was kind of shunned in the congregation a little bit, and that happens. It's sad. You know, rather than going and giving this family some help as an elder body, they shun them. They tell their kids, you know, the elders' kids, not to associate with that family because they're weak spiritually. That's how they deal with it. They segregate within. It's crazy. So she goes on to say, she says, it was around this time, she didn't even want to get baptized, right? So none of the elders' kids are going to hang out with her. And she says it was around this time that a 21-year-old man who was part of the congregation started taking an interest in her. She was 13 years old. Like 13 years old, and she should be getting thinking about baptism. This is the problem in this religion, and 13 is when they start maturing and going through that stage of life. So here this 21-year-old is taking an interest in her in the congregation. Here's what happened. She says, I felt I was growing up in my head anyway, and that's how 13-year-olds feel when they have that change. They go through it. And she goes on to say, so I kind of soaked it all in, the attention from a guy, right? So this guy wanted my attention. He liked me at the time, and I didn't see anything wrong with it, she said. She candidly continued, nobody said anything there like that it was wrong or anything. Wow. So the congregation, no one's seen this 21-year-old taking an interest in a 13-year-old? Or did they just turn a blind eye because of the family? Or was it a weak 21-year-old, still baptized, taking an interest in a weaker outside family on the outskirts, and the strong elders and families, they really don't care. Just keep the strong ones together. That's a lot of times what happens. So she says no one did anything. One woman who was a Jehovah's Witness walked up on him, actually, with his hand in my pants. I'm a kid. He's a man. And she didn't kick him out, didn't report him, and didn't call the police. Wow. Vanessa said that the older man was eventually brought in for a judicial hearing, but no action was taken. Adding, in my mind, I thought he was my boyfriend, so I was happy they didn't punish him. That's how a 13-year-old would think, right? And she goes on to say, I was kind of happy the elders didn't do what they were supposed to do and didn't have him arrested or anything, because I got to be with him longer, which now sounds pretty messed up. But eventually Vanessa, then aged 15, started getting really fed up of the abuse from her mother and the older man before making a drastic decision in February of 1993. She says, I just decided I'm not going to be here anymore one way or another. I decided one night either I'm running away or I'm going to take my life. And I didn't know which, because I have a bunch of siblings and I love them a lot, so I didn't know what to do. Vanessa ultimately decided to run away, which she described as a very difficult decision. My baby brothers were only 2 and 3 years old at the time, so that was hard on me because I can't take care of them. I'm holding them in my arms before I went out crying, and I'm like, I don't want to leave them because I know they're going to get abused, but I couldn't stay. Even though I was thinking suicidal things, I didn't want to die. If I stayed, I'm going to die because I can't do it, so I had to leave the babies. She later was told about her mother's reaction to her being a runaway, and she just acted like she didn't care, like she didn't love me at all. She was just mad. She was worried. She was mad that I embarrassed her, not worried that I was safe. Asked if she thinks that Jehovah's Witness covered up issues, Vanessa says. With my family, they did. They brushed off the relationship I had with that grown man there, and then they brushed off my brother when he reported child abuse. Having run away with a Jehovah's Witness from another congregation who was 2 years her senior, the pair married and fell pregnant, all within 2 months of leaving. Vanessa welcomed 2 more children by the time she was 20 years old and is now also a grandmother. She explained that in the years that followed, she battled a sex addiction, adding, I guess a lot of people coming out of that cult end up repressed or probably like me, not knowing what to do about sex at all. Appreciate your comments on this, folks. If you're finding that this is true, I know from a lot of people I know in there, they struggle. They struggle with this. And a lot of people are in and out of the cult. They get disfellowshipped. They're weaker. They go commit fornication, so they get disfellowshipped for a while. Then they're back in, and the cycle happens all over again. She finishes up the article here. She says, I didn't realize until recently that I actually had my mother's rage. She raged at everybody because of her childhood pain, and I was using sex not to feel my rage. I couldn't heal. I kept making bad decisions. I didn't even know I was that furious. I had to feel something strong. So that's what I did. Vanessa concluded it's only been probably the last 5 years that I actually like who I am. End of article. So that gives us that story from Ohio. And like I say, I'll pin that to the comments below. But when you think of that, with that child who's now an adult, a grandmother, but as we were reading the story together, as a child, imagine what that child went through. And they did nothing. The Jehovah's Witness religion did nothing. Okay, well, we're going to go on to the next article. The next article is Silenced the Radio Vleugel Story. I call it Radio, Rado. Okay, who is Rado Vleugel? This is and I don't even know if I said that right. Let me know in the comments if I've messed it up. It says this is an honest story of a man going through the Jehovah's Witness and finding advocates for Jehovah's Witnesses reform on blood. And this is December 21st, just yesterday. And we'll get right into the article here. My name is Rado Vleugel. I was born on January 1st, 1973 in the city of Amsterdam, while firecrackers were making a lot of noise. The January 15th, 1994 Watchtower page 22, by the way, I looked for that. It shows that they should have it. They have all the way up to 1980, but when I went to pull it up, it says it's pulled out. They no longer have this. So if you have that Watchtower article, he says here, it tells something about his history as well. So he was in the Watchtower. Rado, mentioned earlier, was 6 years old when two pioneers studied the Bible with his parents. When still very young, he regularly accompanied these full-time preachers in the field ministry. Rado himself became a regular pioneer at the age of 17. 1 year after I started pioneering, the elders appointed me as a ministerial servant. The same year, when I was still 18 years old, I was assigned to conduct a congregation book study. Wow. They were moving him up the ladder quick. And that's what I said before, folks. JW Org has children or young people that are hardly mature, and they get them into elder positions, and then they're supposed to shepherd the flock. They're supposed to understand about families and about this and about that and become family counselors. It's not happening. It's not happening because the people are too young. To be a qualified family counselor takes up to 8 years, and then there's even extra studies upon that, and field studies where you have to go and work with people, and they watch you. So it's a really big field doing family, being a psychiatrist in that sense. Now, he goes on to say 1 year he started pioneering. They appointed him as a servant, and he was 18 years old. He was conducting a book study. And in the autumn of 1998, he purchased a new computer with a built-in modem. It had a built-in modem, if you remember those days. We had the separate modem, and it'd make all these noises. If you got one with the built-in modem, that was a big deal. Now, within a week, I discovered the site of AJWRB, so he got on the internet. See, back then, internet was brand new. They didn't have all this information. Don't go on the internet. So he got on the internet. And he found this site. He says, for several years, I'd already had doubts regarding the blood issue. For example, I didn't deliver the May 22nd, 1994 Awake with the topics youths who put God first about young witness children who died because they refused blood transfusions. He says he wouldn't deliver that magazine in the public. He says, on the AJWRB site, I found the letter Stop the Insanity. I felt I had an obligation to translate this letter from English into Dutch. At the end of November 1998, the Dutch translation was finished and uploaded with the AJWRB site. To inform the brothers and sisters in the Netherlands there was an important information for them available on the internet. I spoke anonymously with some journalists. 2 major Dutch newspapers publicized an article about the AJWRB and my call for reform. In one of these newspapers, the spokesman of the Dutch branch, Ruben van den Heuvel, commented on my actions. And he says, happily, we have freedom of speech, and I say, let this people reveal themselves, then we can start a conversation. So he says, my identity was revealed a few days later after I appeared disguised with my voice altered on the national television, talking about the blood issue. The disguise wasn't good enough. The elders in my congregation were phoned by the witnesses from all over the country that it was me on national television. Could you imagine? And he goes on to say, I was phoned by the elders and told that I had been recognized. And because I had a great deal of fear being disfellowshipped, I denied that it was me. And he says, I regret this lie more than my call for the reform. So it really bothered him that he had to lie. Yeah, it bothered him. And that this disfellowshipping, it's such a big thing. It's such a huge thing to the people, to a Jehovah's Witness who's just trying to do something right. And then this threat of being disfellowshipped, just, instantly you run from it. And anyways, he lied and regretted it. Now, he says the day after I denied the fact that I had been on television, the elders called again. Rado, we are now going by a car to your parents with the videotape of the broadcast to see if they will recognize you. So here the elders had phoned him, and they're on the way to his parents with this video to show his parents, to see if his parents could confirm that it was him. Could you imagine? That's what these elders were doing. So he goes on to say there was no place to hide. Before they arrived at my parents' house, I called my father with the announcement that it was me that had appeared on television. My parents were shocked, and the elders showed them the videotape anyways. As expected, a judicial committee was formed. The accusation was apostasy and helping to form a sect. And I couldn't get that part, like helping to form a sect. I can understand their whole apostasy thing. And then he goes on to say, I requested to bring an observer with me. I tried to do that once. I wanted to get an outside person in, an engineer in. But just like in my case here, it says they didn't permit this. Happily, many reform-minded elders who were also active on the internet supported me during the process. So it sounds like he did have some support. Now it goes on to say the committee consisted of 4 elders. Normally it's just 3 elders, but now they got 4 elders. All of them were good friends of mine. Could you imagine? So he goes on to say the atmosphere during the process was a bit strange. We even made jokes together. The elders asked me if I thought I was inspired by Jehovah. I answered, if Jehovah used the donkey of Balaam, why should he not use me? And then we all laughed together. Although the atmosphere wasn't very cold and distant, they didn't listen to my considered arguments. When I asked them probing questions, they said, we don't comment on these questions. We follow the point of view of the governing body. And one illustration I used remained unanswered. This illustration shows the inconsistency of the prohibition of plasma, while at the same time the Watchtower Society allows witnesses to take all of its separate components, with the exception of water. And here is the illustration. A physician prohibits a patient to eat soup with the following ingredients: spring water, chicken, garlic, and corn flour. And at the same time, he allows the patient to eat the ingredients separately, but the patient has one restriction. He has to take tap water instead of spring water. Spring water equals the water of the plasma, and chicken equals albumin, and garlic is hemoglobin, and corn flour is factor number 8 and whatever. And so he was breaking down the plasmas. Good illustration. So after a few hours of debating, I was asked to leave the room so the elders could privately discuss what to do with me. When they called me back, the faces of the elders were very sad. They told me that they had decided to disfellowship me. If I had remorse over my deeds, I would not be disfellowshipped. Because the society can't be the master of conscience of individuals, I decided not to step back again in the footsteps of the Watchtower Society to blindly support an insane and inhumane policy. But I didn't want to be disfellowshipped. I appealed the decision of the committee, and an appeal committee was formed. Now, because they were in close contact with the branch, it took a long time before I had to appear before this committee. At the end of February 1999, I had to appear alone before the 7 members of this committee without any rights. They also decided to disfellowship me. That's what always happens with those appeals. The appeals I found, and I did it myself, it was a waste of time. And it wasn't for me, it was for one of my children. And anyways, that's another story. He goes on to say, I clutched the last straw and appealed to the society. One thing I wrote in my letter to the society was, I hope the brothers of the governing body do not make the same mistake again by confusing a conscientious decision to accept blood with apostasy. As the October 1st, 1994 Watchtower showed, the decision of some Christians to conscientiously accept certain blood components had the positive influence of the Watchtowers permitting their use for all witnesses. What if some Christians also accept other blood components without violating their conscience? I hope that the decision of these Christians may have a positive influence on the future decisions of the governing body. And that's what he wrote to the governing body, a very reasonable argument. Let's see what happened. He says, I also clearly referred to the Bulgarian case, telling the brothers that it is not fair to disfellowship someone for questioning the blood issue, while the society has made an agreement with the Bulgarian government stating that Jehovah's Witnesses can take a blood transfusion without any control or sanction. Interesting. Good argument. And he goes on to say, I asked them to respond in writing, and they were too afraid to do that. Where was the promised freedom of speech? Why wasn't it possible to have a constructive conversation? Good question to the Watchtower. After a week or so, the elders called me to make an appointment to let me know what the answer of the society was. On Saturday, March 6th, 1999, I heard the final irreversible decision, disfellowshipping. 3 days later, my disfellowshipping was made public to the congregation. That day, I lost all my friends. Sincerely, Rado, Vleugel. Well, Rado, if you're out there, we are all your friends. So there's a whole community of us. Great article. Thanks for letting the world know. And we'll do our best on our channel to get this message out. A great article. It just takes my speech away when I think of this stuff that's going on with the news and what's happening. But it's people like Rado Vleugel that are standing up, that are speaking out. And they're rolling the dice, losing their friends. But those are the ones that are going to make change happen within this organization. So all of us can work together by using our voices. We can take videos that we like, articles we like, email them, like them, send them out to friends, and this gets YouTube to do a lot more with these videos. So friends, that's all we have for the news update today. And like I say, until next time, Keep living your life with love. Enjoy your holidays. Bye for now.